Thanks, Ricardo. Good afternoon. Welcome to you all. Thanks for being part of this panel and accompanying us. We are brought up here by the term diversity, in the broad sense of the term, not as a fashionable thing, but a value that is being incorporated into today's culture, giving voice to sectors that are left behind and contributing wealth, taking into consideration different realities, ages, nationalities, genders, and different approaches. What may have been brought about by the need to have a voice and something that did have its public agenda at a time. Today we want to discuss this, sharing visible, concrete examples from the field, from companies, and from the daily activities carried out there. I'm going to introduce my fellow panel members, Fabiana Mena. She is an anthropologist. She has a PhD in letters from the degli studi di Roma La Sapienza and has a master's degree in gender and public policy design from Flaxo. She has over 25 years experience in local development in rural areas and with indigenous communities. In particular, she has committed to strengthening organizational processes with a network approach, training leaders within the framework of productive development and income generation from giving additional value to territories and their biodiversity, with a special emphasis being placed on the independence of rural women and introducing gender approaches in climate change adaptation and mitigation policies. She chairs the Gran Chaco Foundation as well as the Rural Women Network, consultant for international agencies on local development policies, gender and climate change. She is a delegate of the Women 20 working group on gender issues of the G20. There's also Mariana Dorado, former colleague and friend at BASF. She has a degree in marketing from Palermo University, and she has an MBA from SEMA University. She has over 25 years experience at BASF. She was first a trainee and then specialized in supply chain and controlling and played leadership roles for corporate and business areas. She led the marketing area in the chemicals business for the construction industry, and afterwards the marketing services area for the agricultural solutions division, where she's still responsible for specific projects, mergers and acquisitions, among others. Then in 2019, she took on her prior job. In 2023, she was appointed to her current position, that is Senior Marketing Manager for her division, Agricultural Solutions for the region, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Bolivia. After being Senior Manager for Operations and Performance at the Agro Division. Lastly, but not least, Pedro Maggio. Last but not least, he is currently VP of the Aapresid Youth Committee, where he is actively involved in promoting innovation and leadership within agricultural youth. He acts in the northern region of the province of Buenos Aires and Antioquia del Alco, more specifically where he has consolidated as technical consultant in extensive crops, and with control, among other things, trying to face current challenges. He's passionate about technology applied to agriculture, precision agriculture, and soil management. He is very much committed to sustainability, technology, and training in values. To begin with, I'm going to ask Fabiana and actually the different panel members to tell us in a nutshell about their personal history, their day-to-day actions, their perceptions about the path they have taken, and then assess where we are standing and where we are heading. Fabiana, tell us in a nutshell how you became involved in these issues, which maybe were not your first objective, but surely you found the need in incorporating isolated communities. So welcome. Thanks. It's a simple question to answer.
Sí, era mi objetivo, ¿no? La diversidad.
I am an anthropologist. I have studied anthropology, cultural anthropology, because there are many sides to it, as you know. But, well, that field studies the different cultures and intercultural dialogue. I have studied, as you very well said, in Italy. I'm Italian, so cultural diversity, not only have I studied it, but I live it day in, day out. I grew in Africa, then I came to Argentina, but my father was raised in Moron, in the suburbs of Buenos Aires, so I have a mixture. And I'm married to a Uruguayan, and I live in Formosa province. Well, that's life. I've always believed that. I lived it when I was young. I encountered the difficulties of interculturality, cohabiting with people from different cultures, speaking different languages. And then I face this at work, day in, day out. And as part of that diversity, I mean, there's wealth in diversity. And it is a solution to many of the problems we face, not only in Argentina, but globally as well. So we started working first in the north of Argentina. I started in Formosa because I came here because of an international cooperation project for the European Union. And that's why we started working with the Chaco Foundation. The Gran Chaco region was not a buzzword back then. It is a very rich territory in terms of cultural wealth, biodiversity, indigenous peoples who still maintained their language. When I studied anthropology in Italy, I did not know there were original peoples in Argentina. They were not visible. So there was a growing interest and the need to understand how this culture works, people who have always lived in these territories. They have conveyed and shared lots of knowledge on diversity, the ecosystem, and if we think of productive development today, we cannot do away with this knowledge. We need that knowledge, otherwise we will fail. So we need to learn from diversity in order to develop new paths. Innovation stems from diversity. That is why we, with my team, started working especially with women. That was the group where there was the least participation, and there was plenty of knowledge that was not being used. And women were left behind. We grew, and when Argentina hosted the G20, we met lots of other women from different sectors with a different background, and that's when we created the Rural Women Network. Many of them are Aapresid members because we had that perspective. We realized the different realities, the different educational background contributed to a very rich agenda. And that was important, not only for rural women to become more visible and have their own space, have a forum for discussion and contribute their proposals and implement them and materialize them, but they could actually contribute solutions to many things. So, to give you an example, handicrafts, which were an undervalued activity, we repositioned them so that this has become one of the major sources of income for indigenous communities in Chaco, with a community formed by 1,600 women. We positioned the Rural Women Agenda as part of the G20 agenda with Women 20. We have a productive development project with the north of Africa and the north of Argentina, a number of achievements that we have had. And when those doors are opened, when we manage to have all these players sitting around the same table, then that's where opportunities and solutions come up. In this case, there are different types of solutions, say, for example, to poverty, to environmental issues. We discussed this morning when we speak on non-wood forestry, and we see the production of carob meal and other products. This contributes to sustainability in a territory like that in the north of Argentina, where we cannot think of agriculture leaving behind native forests. So it is along that path that diversity and the encounter of different knowledge, wisdom, is important. And this is brought forward by women, strengthening women's networks in different fashions. And all this contributes to the public agenda, to policy making, to ensure that this agenda and policies will be more sustainable. They reduce environmental risk, social conflict, combining, for example, agriculture and forestry, as I said, and there are opportunities for wealth, not only for the domestic market, but also internationally.
A very good summary, and we still have a lot to discuss with Fabiana. Mariana, can you please summarize your personal story in a multinational company such as BASF? What has been the impact of culture and time changes, which may not have been noticeable initially, but with the new millennium, we've had a new agenda, and in a multinational company, people are its pillar, and the challenge is to take advantage of the diversity you may find there. I'm going to connect my story and what has happened in a multinational company such as BASF that may be similar to any other big company in the field. I joined the company 30 years ago after I left high school. I was studying at the German school. It was close from home, and that's why I ended up there as a secretary. I was doing an internship 30 years ago. There were very few women in roles that were not secretaries in agriculture. There might have been women in communication or in the financial area, but in general terms, there were very few women in the field. Now, in 2025, where diversity for companies such as BASF is part of its mission, vision, and what we want, which is connecting people to innovation and customers, understanding that in a society you have different people, we have different customers, so we also want to be a diverse company so that through that diversity we can generate value. What is value? Innovation. And innovation takes place through creativity, hard work, exchange among people, because it is more difficult. You need to reach agreements, to understand other people, to deal away with your bias, but that's the only way in which you can take more robust decisions that lead to those better decisions. But in the past, obviously, things were totally different. There's been an evolution, and BASF, as any other company, reflects society. So I think there are two aspects: the company policies, being a global company present in over 100 countries, makes it possible to generate policies to promote that diversity, understanding the value of that diversity, but implementing that in a consistent manner, because you have to walk your talk, and that can only be done through concrete actions. So the company started to create policies. How can I link this to my personal story? I was working as a secretary. While I was working, I studied in university. I studied marketing, and I would apply for jobs in the agricultural sector that I had always liked, but I was not an agricultural engineer. I had studied marketing. I was a woman, which maybe was not so easy at the time. I was very young. I think there were many factors that many things that just happened, such as integration of younger generations. Today, you may find four generations in the same environment. And around 2005, 2010, the company had to start learning and educating ourselves to make the most out of our people, because initially we would label people. This person has this age, so he or she would think in this or that way. So the company started to generate spaces. Initially, this was a shy attempt, but today we have groups where people who want to work on LGBTQ plus groups or with people with disabilities can start getting together, talking, learning from others. We bring people from other places, specialists such as Fabiana, who contribute their knowledge to us, because when you want to do something, you need to carry out concrete actions. And today, in my evolution, when I was given the opportunity in another industry, with my experience, I was able to get into the agricultural sector. I've been there for 15 years, and today the reality is different. And sometimes you request policies. I had a son 13 years ago. I decided to become a mother, and I said, I want to really enjoy this time, and I want to live this time differently. And I really put this up in the agenda. There was another person who was doing partial work, but then there were more women, and this became a policy. Today, there is a flexible work time policy. Initially, it was only for women. Now it also applies to men. Initially, we had to adjust physical space, just the space in the office, for example. We need spaces for breastfeeding. So from the very beginning, from the planning stage today, you consider there should be places for people with disabilities to be able to get into the company. So many small but important actions that gradually integrated more people. And sometimes people say, well, now because she's a woman, she will get this position or this job. But we all understand that that is the beginning to build things. And in agriculture today, there are many people who are not agricultural engineers. There are communicators, there are marketing people, there are customer experience people. There is a person in the digital department who comes from a different business area. So there are great examples. And my personal challenge is when I'm a team trainer, when I have to add someone to a team, my diversity perspective is, well, if it's a team of men, obviously the person needs to fit the job description. But if there are all men, I try to add a woman. That is, if I need people from another generation, I try to get that into account too. And that is contagious. You see that there's hard work behind that. It's easier to get together with those who think just like you, but if you understand that that additional work is something that will help you know more, our learning model is 70-20-10. 70 is learning in a role, 10% training that we do not neglect. We have training spaces to learn, to be aligned on paths, and the remaining 20% is learning from others. So if I learn from others who are just like me, I will not learn anything. So it's much richer for me to learn from a person with different sexual orientation, different gender, different academic background, a person from another country. This is a multinational company, so we may have people from different countries. But culturally, in our region, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Bolivia, there are many differences. You may say, we all speak Spanish, it's all the same. It is not all the same. So we all have to work on this, understanding that our goal is to do things better. As a company, we will be more employable. Companies want to attract talents who would not like to work in a place where you can be yourself. Because if you have your own space, then you will be more committed. It's a virtuous cycle which may be less visible initially because, well, you don't know what to say. Maybe I shouldn't crack this joke because it's not respectful. There are some tricks there, but I think that if we all understand the ultimate goal, it becomes much easier because you will take learnings with you. Who would not like to learn? But in order to learn some things, you have to unlearn others. We all have our backpack, and sometimes to take some things in, you need to take other things out that may no longer be useful. I was part of that change process in the company. You were talking about maternal leave. I remember when I had my children. When I had my third child, I went back to work the following day. My wife took a taxi to go back home from the hospital, and it was natural for me. It's not that I was not taking care of her. And looking back, I think I missed lots of things. I lived those changes in Bath, and I also thought they were very positive. Now let's go to Pedro, the young person here. Pedro, please tell us from the field, what are the battles you think you had to fight as a young professional in an environment that up to a short time ago was an environment just for men, and age was an attribute and even a symbol that you were not even allowed to question what your boss said. The environment, the sector was quite reluctant to accept changes, and it was a male chauvinist sector. Have you seen any changes in the integration of women, young people, or other diversity in the rural sector over the last few years? Yes. Agriculture has suffered a structural change in thought. In its concept, women were owners women. During my first stages, while I was studying, I was working for a seeding company, and the role of women in that company were only administrative roles. The head of a team had just joined the company, and the teams really resisted. Even her subordinates didn't like her, and they all said she will mess things up, it will be difficult to work with her. But 3-4 months later, the team had really become a good team and started to make progress on some basic things. because they would say, hey, that young person is giving advice, but he's so young, he thinks he's an engineer, I will not pay attention to him. And they also felt that a woman would undervalue their job, would weaken their job. It was a situation of egos. But nobody is winning or losing here. This is, we all win when we add diversity into our work teams within the structure of a company, and in my case, within the structure as a young person. When you start adding people from different diversity group, you start seeing lots of improvements. But if you take a picture today and you look back 6 months or 1 year, you will realize that the team is working much better today, even though we thought it wouldn't work in the past. There is always someone with a different view. Sometimes you want to change things, and that's good. It's not that a new person should be done away with. No, we have to work together. When I finished university, I worked at Agropecuaria, and women agricultural engineers started joining the teams, and people would say, she will not be able to carry the canisters, or she will not be able to spend the whole day in the field. But eventually we saw that women would do exactly the same thing we would do. Sometimes you thought you were great at controlling things, and they were even better. And sometimes you have to say, it's so good to have you here with us because you helped me a lot, and vice versa. So we go back to the same thing. Teams become much better when you integrate diversity in profession, in thinking. It adds a lot to the team. Aapresid Joven has already trained 3 commissions. We started with 3 women, and today in our commission, most of the team members are women. Maria Emilia would lead the team. We always make fun of her, and we always told her that she was the one driving things. And she was really a driver for things. And when you saw her, you would say, I want to join her. I want to work with her because she has lots of ideas. And I really like her because she's the one who created this commission. She called me and she said, I want you to be part of the chair people in that team. And when she would say that, I would tell her, oh, that's very nice, but what should I do? So we got together with Disertaron, and we said, okay, let's create this commission. Who will be part of the team? And we started realizing that not only did we have a group of agricultural engineers, but we also had people working in communications. We have a biomedical engineer in Aapresid. She discovered the world of agriculture. She liked it. She also studied communication and journalism. She got to know Aapresid, and she loved it. She participated in one of our meetings, and there she stayed. There's another lady who works in insurance, someone who has a PhD in environmental management. And you say Aapresid is focused on agriculture, but everyone contributes to agriculture from their perspectives. We also do internal training once a month. One of us explains what they do. Please, once a month, we tell someone, please make a presentation and explain to us what you do. And we've seen that we've learned a lot about basic things such as how to communicate what you do in a better way so that the community you work for can understand it. So the growth was exponential for all the team members. I think this is the main message. The more diversity in a team, the more you will gain personally in your team and in your company or in your family. I totally agree, and this is what we always say. When there are cross-sectional teams, when leaders are leaders because they know how to share, how to give space, and how to listen to those who think differently, to get out of the box, to look at the problem from the outside. That is very important. It happens to me that I learn a lot from my children. The millennials started with a different point of view, a different way of seeing things, a different way of expressing their needs. And they will tell me, this is what I think. I do not agree with you. And you may think, I've raised a monster, but we grow up with all of these new ideas. How would you define the present time, achievements, goals, trends? What do you see looking forward? How do you live these times? As my colleagues have just said, in companies and organizations, a lot of improvement has already been made. But as everyone said, it's not been easy. We have to emphasize this. You need to generate policies in companies or public policies so there will be space for diversity, and that is when you will see the benefit. There might be some resistance initially, but then you will see that things work better. Companies will see that this is good from all points of view. But you have to break some barriers first, and this happens everywhere. And it's still happening, even though it's quite established. There's still a lot of room for improvement. Equity, diversity, equality in diversity, in age, in gender is still a goal to be achieved. So we have to speed up to achieve our goals. And in the rural women area, we want this acceleration to happen as a result of concrete actions, projects. In our case, it's economic self-sufficiency, because in short, this is what makes it sustainable. This is what shows that it is the right way. So you have to keep working on diversity, but this is not something that happens spontaneously. It requires some investment. In the case of the rural sector, diversity may be related to different productive activities, and that in those different productive activities need investment, research. This morning, in the streaming, we said that it would be great for sheep breeding to have the same innovation that we had in no-till for agriculture. If this happened in 10 years' time, there might be a revolution in several parts of the country. So diversity means social diversity, but similarly and automatically, they should also include economic diversity, knowledge diversity. For it to really become a value, it's got to be pushed. It requires research, investment, development, so that it will be up to the other activities. So at the Rural Women Network, after our experience in Expo Agro this year, where we held our first Congress and where we took our agenda to the different sectors, we're working hard to implement concrete projects that show the coordination among the different parts of the productive chain, forestry, cattle breeding, agriculture, that's the path to environmental sustainability. This is a very valuable way to fight climate change. And of course, as a result of all that, we'll have this small, all women participating, women from indigenous peoples, women who are rural workers. We want everyone to be together and work on concrete projects. And this is what we see as priorities in Argentina. Within the framework of Women 20, we're also working on the global agenda, because sometimes we think of what we are missing here and we say, well, Argentina, we miss this or that. But when we go, at least based on our experience in the network of rural women, in the Women 20, when we go to the G20 meeting where the most advanced countries meet, we see similar problems. The diversity agenda, equality agenda, considered as an opportunity, not only as a right, which is also super important, but it is still a pending agenda. So what we see is that we can contribute a lot to processes that are taking place in other countries. We've also traveled a long way here in Argentina, and this can be useful for other countries.
Well, we have gone a long way. In our case, diversity started as a project, and it is no longer a project for us. It's a corporate value. That's the way we want to do things. That's how we make decisions. But specific actions maybe take place at the level of company processes. We think of connecting that experience of the people who work at BASF with the customer experience. In order to deliver the best customer experience, we need to have the best experience delivered to our colleagues, so that there is consistency between the colleague experience and the customer experience. So concrete actions started with what we call the moments that a person lives throughout his or her life cycle at BASF. We have guidelines on inclusive language for recruitment. We ensure there is a diverse panel for interviewing applicants. When people are recruited, we have onboarding on diversity and inclusion so that they are on the same page. Also, there's always training to understand what is going on. There are lots of actions that maybe were undertaken by a minority, and then there are actions that have to do with women, and these actions are replicated with men. We meet with our team once a year at the annual convention, and we started off women who have young kids and maybe cannot attend, so we started to invite those people to come with someone else to look after their children so that they won't miss the opportunity, and then we extended that to male parents. Society has changed. There's shared raising, shared activities. And in the meantime, we perform measurements, which is very important. We conduct a survey amongst our colleagues every year, and we used to ask different questions. Questions evolve. Now we ask about the inclusion rate, and that is the standard. Today we have 80% of favor responses to the inclusion rate, which shows whether a person can act naturally at the company. We also measure leaders. We are measured. Our colleagues assess us and rate us, among other things, in terms of how inclusive we are as leaders. And when people leave the company voluntarily, as part of the exit interview, we discuss with the person to see whether the decision to leave the company has to do with any inclusion issue. That, which at the beginning was just one or two actions, has translated into several. And the challenge is something that affects us all and which we deal with every day. It's not a fashion, but the way we work, which is cross-cutting to all pillars. We have run out of time, and from Aapresid, this is part of the perspective program, how we look at things and how can we bring this into the agenda in greater depth and with a higher degree of maturity. And it has to do with the paradigm shifts that have taken place. This speaks of the institution, learning from mistakes, learning from things that maybe we thought were the right thing to do, and now we put them in perspective and we wonder what we have done. We always have to put things in context. We have diversity here at Aapresid. We value diversity. We work on environmental diversity and human diversity too. At that time, we used to work on soybean, glyphosate, corn, and today we value the diversity in terms of species, caring for the soil, life, and this is something that we must all share, feeling that we are part of a system and that no one can dominate the other person or enjoys the absolute truth. This is what I wanted to leave you with as a take-home message. Apologies, Pedro. We want to open now the panel for questions. I don't know if you have any questions for the speakers or make any comment or contribution. The mic is yours.
Segundito, espera así.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I wanted to ask you the following. Since you have talked about this at President BSF, how can you replicate that in small and medium companies in the provinces, whether that is feasible or not, whether you can give us any advice in this regard? Well, that's a lengthy effort. It won't take place overnight. You have to start with short-term actions, with minor changes, step by step, and then implement more stringent actions. Maybe in the provinces, if there's anyone in the team, for example, who says, I'm the daughter of a farmer and it's a family business, but because I'm a woman, I have no say in the family business. The idea is to plant the seed. I mean, and then you end up working in a leading company. The idea is not to be taken back by a chauvinist approach to the family business. You have to do it step by step, prove how valuable you are, and then the world is yours. I don't know if you will end up being the family business leader, but maybe you start working at a small or medium company or a large company like BASF. You have to keep on working and driving this change. This morning I was at a talk on digital transformation. Were you there? They did not speak about technology. The big challenge that they put forward at that talk is the intergenerational relations, that is the alpha generation and centennials. This is central and essential in all companies, ensuring gender diversity. And for example, in the case of Italy, how young people may join a small company. And that happens because in my experience, it was the same thing. I started from the outside, finding my space, finding room for me to develop. In the network, that's the way we start in terms of gender policies. We started from the outside. We tried to find some access points or access windows. And from there, prove or show there is a benefit for the company in having inclusion policies, and trying to have that then permeate the core of the institution you work at. And technology is a great aid for that. Technology may help open doors that would otherwise remain closed. But we have to know that technology is a means to prove leadership capabilities, skills, and thus generate this transformational change. For the digital transformation, we need a change, a cultural change in the company, but oftentimes technology is the means to achieve this change and not the other way around. I don't know if I made myself clear about my opinion. Well, it's similar to what has just been said. Maybe I wanted something and had to find alternative ways to achieve it, always looking for opportunities, being attentive to identify opportunities. And at a company like BS or any multinational, the search for diversity facilitates the opening of doors for young people who have a different approach and who contribute well. But sometimes not all spaces are for all people. We should not romanticize diversity. At a company, you have to share the corporate values. They must be in sync with your values. My values are in sync with the company's. I have been there for 30 years. Otherwise, if it hadn't been the case, if I had not had the space, I would have looked for a place that were in sync with what I wanted for my career development. In my experience, not as a panelist, but as a farmer and then the owner of a family business, as I said, I worked for 30 years in a multinational, and I learned a lot. I now have employees, 3 on the field, a head who is a nephew, a truck driver. And in the past, you had to work on the field 24/7. The field manager would live there, and everyone would be dependent on the head's job, Sundays, Saturdays, and Maybe now time is managed differently, and there was a cultural shift amongst my brothers, for example. We needed to change our mindset and try to ensure that employees will not work beyond 8 hours a day. That was not the case in the past. Now people enjoy weekends, have time to attend school activities, take their kids to the city or to town for health care, things that did not happen in the past. These things were not taken into consideration. People would work on the field 24/7. So these are small changes that we can introduce at our companies and that young people need to bring about. We are constantly learning from youth, and these minor changes, I mean, why is it that the truck driver, why not allow him to be home on Sunday instead of Monday? Allow the truck driver, for example, to have a day off on Sunday. We said that during the streaming activity this morning. If there's anyone who needs to live in the country, would say, that's no solution. They will want to be in town. It is better if the employee can go back home at a time that is early enough to share family life. Any other question? Good afternoon. This thing about changes, I experience them with my nephews. When I was 8, 9 years old, my grandparents would say, no, children cannot speak. Stay aside. And today, my nephews are 5 and 7 years old, and they have their own space. And society has changed a lot. I'm 40 years old. There has been a great change in 20 years. Everyone has a voice. And this that you're experiencing will change at some point in time. This will no longer be discussed. Women will take on a leading role, but socially speaking, there has been some shift already. Those who are in the 30-something, 40s, now that we are parents, that we have our own families, we are trying to change things that we did not like when we were kids. Say that we were not allowed to take part in adult conversations. That has changed and will change still further. And even though there are some negative things that still prevail, there have been some positive changes. Thanks to the panel members. Any question here? It is comment. There's little diversity. Sorry, but at first he made a comment of mine. That's why I said that there have been many changes that have taken place, but there's still a lot to do. In March, we held the Rural Women Congress within Expo Agro. And I said our indicator is the number of men that will be sitting in each panel. And there were many men. So we said, well, this has been a success because whenever we speak of diversity, it's associated with gender diversity, of course, and it is a discussion that we entertain among women. So thanks for your comment because it shows it's two sides of the same coin. There's plenty of progress, but we still have a lot to do. Thanks. It was difficult to include a diversity panel as part of the Congress. I'm in the Congress team, and when we discussed the different topics, we said, well, will it be a difficult topic? No, but we have to. We need to include this topic. It's a pendulum. It goes from one end to the other. Extreme feminism is no good. Extreme chauvinism is no good either. We need to learn as we do. Thanks very much again. Thanks to panel member. Pleasure to meet you, talk to you, and it's been a very fruitful session. Thanks very much.